Editor Nick and I have this fun little in-joke we have. I ask him what review codes are in and advice on what to check out, and he says, well, there's this thing I'm pretty sure you'd like, and I take one look at it and go, I don't like this at all, why are you such a terrible judge of these things, you fucking moron? And then he tells me to go fuck myself, and I call him a cunt and give him a slap, and then he kicks me in the balls, and then I scream and go for the eye gouge, and then the police get called. Oh, the fun we have. And this whole process played out last week when he suggested I take a look at our beta code for Where Winds Meet. What's that, a game about two flatulent people sharing a bed back to back? No. Also, that was extremely weak. It's a Chinese always online free-to-play RPG, and already I can feel my hands making the eye gouge finger quotes. Not another bloody gacha game. I went through this with Genshin and Wuthering Waves and Persona X. Whatever amusement can be gleaned from the mechanics narrative and understated booby jiggles, I can never get past the basic functioning of the gacha format feeling like opening an endless succession of advent calendars in a cubicle plastered with flyers for Vegas prostitutes. Ah, but this isn't a gacha game yet. It's actually got a solo play focus. Free-to-play, always online, single-player focus. Did you just turn over 2 pages at once? Alright, it's a little bit of a gacha game, but try it anyway, maybe it'll win you round. It did not win me round, but I also didn't go for the eye gouge. Mainly I returned from my adventures in Where Farts Collide in a state of profound bafflement. And now, listeners, I face the difficult task of summarising what the game is actually about. I say difficult because I'm not convinced the designers knew that. Where Winds Meet came across to me like probably someone with an awful lot of money, set out to make a cutting-edge video game. And they got very excited about all the cool stuff they were going to put in it. It was going to be a full-on open world with combat and stealth and horse riding and dungeon exploring, and one mission will be a fucking deductive puzzle challenge out of nowhere, and so many characters, and some of them will be AI chatbots, because why the fuck not? But then drew a massive blank when called upon to figure out what it was all actually about, and how the story would set things in motion. There's a hero, they're on a journey. To do what, lead designer? Look, I can't be expected to make every bloody decision. I've still got to count all this money I've got. The prologue depicts a very handsome young Chinese dude who teams up with another very handsome young Chinese dude as they go wire-foo apeshit on a bunch of extremely generic bad guys, and one of the heroes is carrying a baby, who I assume is the baby of someone really important because of the way he resists the urge mid-combat to use him as an improvised flail. Anyway, after the prologue, we create our character, choosing from one of several very similar-looking attractive young Chinese people, and find ourselves in a sleepy Chinese village hanging out with a spunky young girl, who I initially thought was the baby, and that we were still playing as the dude from the prologue, the character creation having been some representation of how our looks changed after a few years in hiding, and possibly some plastic surgery. No, I eventually deduced that we are the baby all grown up, oblivious to our destiny, who is treated by everyone else in the plot as a greenhorn young teen, even though we are clearly an adult with unstoppable fighting skills, and every NPC we meet looks exactly the same age as us. The general vibe early on is that we want to go off and have adventures like the heroes of legend, but we can't because we're stuck helping our grumpy aunt look after the farm. Our grumpy aunt, who again is a very attractive person who looks the same age as us. Then we run into another attractive young Chinese man, who we're supposed to think is a grizzled old former hero because he's wearing what looks like a rather ineptly made false beard, and then after a lot of pissing about, your home village gets burned down and you lose everything in that special way that means you can still go back to it and do the side quests whenever you want. And our new life of adventuring begins. So yeah, it's literally Star Wars A New Hope if you applied the Half-Life 2 cinematic mod, and the first act was dragged out for 3 more hours while Luke finished packing his bum bag. From there we move to a new city area and get embroiled in some nonsense involving multiple factions fighting over a magic bowl that dispenses infinite coins, most of which are represented by attractive young Chinese people, but importantly, some of them aren't. So I'm like, ooh, finally shit's hotting up, but unfortunately that's as far in the plot as I got, thanks to some of the game's wonderful gacha-adjacent mechanics, wherein the critical path occasionally screeches to a halt until you side-quest your way to a certain level and wait an actual literal day, Animal Crossing style. So it's like A New Hope if we had to stop every now and again to hand-crank the generator running the projector. Every 10 levels or so you stop gaining experience until you hunt through the horrible overlaying menus like a jungle explorer with a machete trying to find the one tiny whiny little prompt that will teleport you to an arena for a timed combat challenge, after which the next 10 levels are unlocked. And I was like, bitch, are you making me take a fucking driving test to play more of the game? How is this supposed to make sense within the context of the story? Is our character daydreaming? Is this a flashback to that one time they got lost in a mafia-controlled cave network? So immersion is impossible. Every time you have to venture back into the menus to try to figure out if your weapons can be upgraded, and if so, which of the 19 different screens you're supposed to do it on. You're not an adventurer in fantasy China anymore, you're a node on a graph in a giant inescapable PowerPoint presentation. I couldn't even find the fucking map. I had to go into the quests menu, select a quest, select show on map, and then go, oh actually I changed my mind, deselect that quest, but do you mind if I stay on this map for a bit? And that was the only way to figure out where the fuck I was. Hang on, I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, combat. There's combat, and it's fine, I guess. Bit Elden Ringy, especially in the very occasional boss fights, and a bit spongy if you don't keep up with all the fucking data administration work. That's how you keep your stuff upgraded. Actually, it's hard to judge because early on the game said, hey, do you want parry assistance on? And I didn't know what that meant. That could have been anything from a subtle icon over incoming attacks to the game doing all the parries for you like a fussy dad with a science project. Turned out what it meant was the game slows down and prompts you, essentially turning parries into quick time events, which is more assistance than I wanted, but I could tell the parryable attacks were hard to read, so I was afraid to turn assistance off in case I got bogged down, and I guess that's officially as far as my strength of character extends. I should mention that this and much of my struggle to understand the plot probably comes down to translation issues, and in the readme for the beta I was playing, it made sure to say, yes, we know the English translation kinda sucks, we'll fix that in the proper release, and everything else you have problems with. Which leaves me in another difficult position. I guess I need to summarise my feelings about where credits card decline without referencing glitches, shitty menu design, bad translation, or anything else that could theoretically be fixed in post. Okay then. It's shit. Thanks for watching.